So, the American Atheist site again, dealing with another quote Bible contradiction, unquote. Let me just take a sec. Get that one, get that one. How many of these do they have? Oh, there they have the end of the world, resurrection. They got like a whole page. I guess it's not the end of the world. I just wasn't sure if it's like, one of those things where it's like 430 contradictions. It's like I could, I don't believe any of them are contradictions. And I'd go through all of them, but man, why don't you just give me your best examples so I'm not just completely just piling through them, like what about this? What about this? What about this? Like just give some good examples. How about that? Give me one good example. But anyways, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. One man esteems one day above another, another esteem every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. So, Exodus is the second book of the Bible. Romans is in the New Testament, quite a ways away. And if I remember correctly, thousands of years after Exodus. What you're dealing with in Exodus is the people, the children of Israel being taken out into the wilderness and needing laws set up for them. Some of them were just for the time. Some of them, the moral ones, like don't kill people and whatever, still exist because the principle is always there. But certain ones were created just for that time, just for whatever they might need. There was nothing super amazing about the Sabbath day necessarily. Let me look up a verse. Mark 2:23. One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and his disciples walked along. They began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are you doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" He answered, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat. And he also gave some to his companions. Then he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." So Jesus, as God, was above the Sabbath. And the Sabbath was made for man. It was made for us. Jesus said, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And these are not moral things so much necessarily, because the Sabbath is made for man. So when you are dealing with that, it's for the benefit of man, because they're resting. And if they're hungry, they're real hungry, then they can eat some. And I think there was probably more going on here than just that. I'll say that. I'm not 100% sure all of what was going on here. But yeah, So, is it a real strict thing? No, not necessarily. For that time, it was very strict because the children of Israel were very rebellious people, I believe. That was why it was as it was. So God gave them the law. And he made stuff like that real strict. But it's not, it was something they kept holy, they kept separate for that day, or for that time, to give them their rest, to help them to trust God, things like that. No, it was made for man, and it's not necessarily something we need to follow anymore. So maybe I'll jump to Romans 14 now. Romans 14, him that is weak in the faith receive ye, but not to doubtful disputations. For one believeth he may eat all things, another who is weak eateth herbs. Let not him that eateth despise him that eateth not, and let not him which eateth not judge him that eateth, for God hath received him. Who art thou to judge another man's servant? To his own master he standeth or falleth. Yea, he shall be holden up, for God is able to make him stand. Let me see. And then you go down that list, and it's just things, if someone's following God, and they're doing this, and they're just thinking like, yeah, I don't know about this, about like eating meat or whatever, just let them be. They're free to eat meat, but if for whatever reason they just don't believe that, as long as it's, in faith, then they are free as long as they're following God in that. So, and someone thinks one day is greater than the other. One day isn't necessarily greater than the other anymore. You look even in the Old Testament time, you can go to the book of Joshua. There was a time when on the Sabbath day, they worked 7 times as much. These are not strict things. These are not strict things like that. Because Sabbath was made for man. So nowadays, there's a different thing. We're not under that law anymore. We don't get put to death for working on the Sabbath. It's just, it's still good. It's still good to take a Sabbath. I know we have like 2-day weekends and whatnot, but the idea is man was made for the Sabbath. And I think for that time, they needed to be strict about it, because otherwise the people would be just off doing whatever. And, and it helped them trust God, because they would, the 6 days, they would get their food. The 7th, they would bring it in. Why don't I just pull that scripture up real quick? On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each, and when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, what? Oh, these two translate a little. Came and reported this to Moses. Okay. So 6 days they gathered twice as much, and it showed, it was just something, I believe, for God to obey them. But it's something that Paul's pretty clear does not need to be followed. Like that. You can read the book of Galatians, where it's a short book, talks about the law, how we're not under it anymore. It was for this time. The morals are still there, but the moral of the Sabbath was that the Sabbath was made for man. So it was, it wasn't as strict in the first place. I hope that's making sense. So is that really a contradiction? Again, I don't think so.